begins to blanket the majestic kingdom of Cordinia. Queen Margaret prepares for the annual Royal Christmas Gala, a grand tradition that draws dignitaries, nobles, and royalty from around the world. But this year, the Queen's carefully curated world is shaken when her only son, the dashing and charming Prince Edward, returns from America not with a diplomat or duchess on his arm, but with Emily Taylor, a spirited, down-to-earth seamstress from Philadelphia who captured his heart with her wit, warmth, and unfiltered honesty. Appalled by the idea of a commoner stepping into royal life, especially one who's never curtsied, let alone navigated a palace, Queen Margaret launches into full royal strategy mode. With her regal poise and impeccable manners concealing her true intentions, she initiates a subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, campaign to undermine the budding relationship. From orchestrated, accidental encounters with glamorous noblewomen to assigning Emily impossible royal etiquette lessons, the Queen is determined to show her son, and his American girlfriend, that some fairy tales are better left unfinished. But Queen Margaret underestimates both Emily's resilience and the power of true love. Amid the twinkling lights, bustling Christmas markets, and festive carolers of Cordinia, Emily begins to charm not only the palace staff but the people of the kingdom. And as the clock ticks toward Christmas Eve, the Queen may find herself facing a decision she never expected: hold on to tradition, or open her heart to a new kind of royal family. Because sometimes, love is the most regal force of all. A royal holiday begins. The morning sun glimmers through the frosted windows of the grand palace of Cordinia. Snowflakes swirl gently over manicured gardens as servants bustle through the marble halls, stringing garlands and polishing chandeliers. Inside the Queen's private sitting room, elegance reigns supreme. Velvet drapes, polished silver, and a 12-foot Christmas tree adorned with crystal ornaments create a scene worthy of a postcard. Queen Margaret, dignified and graceful in her tailored royal blue gown, sits at her ornate writing desk, reviewing the guest list for the Royal Christmas Gala. With a gold pen in hand and reading glasses perched delicately on her nose, she circles names and raises a brow with each new addition. She is a woman of tradition, proud of her lineage, and fiercely protective of her country's image, especially at the most public event of the year. Is the ambassador of Valdovia bringing his wife or his mistress this time? She mutters dryly to her royal aide, Mr. Whitmore, who responds with a polite, well-practiced chuckle. She rises and strolls to the window, looking out over the snowy courtyard where preparations are underway for the annual Christmas festival. Choirs rehearse, horses are groomed for the sleigh procession, and bakers prepare thousands of holiday pastries for the town's upcoming Christmas Eve celebration. This Christmas must be perfect, she declares. It's our most photographed season. And with Edward returning from America, it's time he remembered who he is and where he belongs. The Queen's tone softens only slightly at the mention of her son. Her love for him is fierce, but her expectations are steeped in centuries of royal tradition. She imagines him walking through the palace doors with a suitable European noblewoman at his side, ready to announce their engagement. But what Queen Margaret doesn't know, yet, is that Edward's heart now beats to a different rhythm, one woven not of silk and jewels, but of thread and dreams, dreams stitched by a seamstress from Philadelphia. A prince returns with holiday cheer, and a secret. The royal carriage pulls through the palace gates, its wheels crunching softly over the snow-covered stone. Inside, Prince Edward, tall, effortlessly handsome, with a twinkle of mischief in his eyes, leans toward the window, his breath catching slightly at the sight of home. The towers of Cordinia's palace rise against a wintry sky, wreathed in garlands and fairy lights, as festive music spills from the village square in the distance. But Edward isn't just home for Christmas. He steps out of the carriage with an energy that can't be contained, brushing off the cold and tugging his scarf tighter around his neck. Palace staff greet him with bows and curtsies, but he barely notices. His thoughts are already racing ahead. He's in love. For the first time in years, he feels like more than just Prince Edward of Cordinia. He feels like a man who's found something real, something unexpected. Her name is Emily Taylor, and she's everything he never knew he needed: funny, kind, unpretentious, and fiercely independent. He met her during a diplomatic charity project in Philadelphia, where she was working backstage at a fashion benefit, adjusting hemlines and helping models into designer gowns. One spilled latte, a shared umbrella, and several long conversations later, Edward was smitten. Now, as he strides through the palace hallways, he's eager to tell his mother. Not just about Emily, but about how she makes him laugh, how she challenges him, and how being with her feels like the most natural thing in the world. In his chambers, he opens his suitcase and smiles down at a small, neatly folded scarf, handmade, with a tiny stitched heart on the inside. Emily had slipped it in just before he left for Cordinia. Wait until Mother meets her, Edward mutters with hopeful optimism. She'll love Emily. Of course, the one thing Edward hasn't considered is that love, especially royal love, rarely unfolds without a little complication. Unbeknownst to him, Queen Margaret is already drafting a list of eligible duchesses for the Christmas gala. And her idea of the perfect daughter-in-law does not include a seamstress from South Philadelphia with a closet full of Christmas sweaters and a knack for telling the truth, especially to royalty. A very royal arrival. A flurry of snowflakes dance around the train platform as Emily Taylor steps onto the cobblestones of Cordinia for the first time. Her suitcase bumps along behind her, its wheels squeaking over the frost. She clutches her sketchbook under one arm, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and anxiety. Wow, she whispers to herself, staring up at the frosted rooftops and twinkling lights strung across charming storefronts. This place really is a snow globe. Emily, bundled in a cozy red pea coat and wearing her favorite Christmas scarf, the one with the tiny reindeer stitched along the hem, is not your typical guest of the crown. A gifted seamstress with a sharp wit and a love for hot cocoa with extra marshmallows, Emily was personally requested by Prince Edward to assist with last-minute tailoring for the palace's annual Christmas gala. Though flattered, she was reluctant to accept, until Edward convinced her with a heartfelt call and a plane ticket that read, First Class, Cordinia. Now, as the palace looms in the distance like a fairy tale come to life, Emily can't help but feel a little out of place. She's met celebrities. She's fitted gowns for politicians and red carpet regulars. But royalty? That's new territory. She brushes a snowflake off her nose and gives herself a quick pep talk. You've survived runway divas and bridal meltdowns. You can handle a few royals. Her nerves aren't helped when she arrives at the palace gates, where two stone-faced guards greet her as if she might be smuggling fruitcake. A butler escorts her through marble halls adorned with holly, golden ribbon, and wreaths the size of small cars. Inside the palace, the staff are bustling. The grand ballroom is mid-transformation. Garlands hang from crystal chandeliers, a stage is being assembled for the orchestra, and dress forms wearing unfinished gowns line one side of the room. Emily is led straight to her workspace, a sunlit corner with tall windows, sewing machines, bolts of fabric, and a teacup already waiting for her. She smiles at the attention to detail. At least someone here believes in hospitality, she quips to herself. Moments later, she hears footsteps, and turns just as Prince Edward enters, his smile lighting up the room like the Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center. Welcome to Cordinia, he says warmly, brushing a bit of snow from her shoulder. Emily looks at him, her heart skipping just a little. You weren't kidding. It really is magical here. He leans in closer. It is now. Unbeknownst to either of them, Queen Margaret is watching from the top of the grand staircase, lips pursed and gloved hands folded. She's just been informed that the seamstress has arrived, and the holidays in Cordinia are about to get very interesting. Stitched together by fate. The palace's royal wardrobe room is a beautiful blend of tradition and chaos. Silken gowns and velvet suits hang from golden racks. Beaded slippers are arranged in neat rows beside towering stacks of hatboxes. Bolts of fabric lie unrolled like rivers across the floor, and the air hums with the soft sounds of scissors snipping and needles darting. Emily, dressed in a simple blouse and jeans with a pencil tucked behind her ear, is hunched over a hemline, murmuring to herself. If I take an inch from the waist and another from the train, it won't sweep like a mop, she mutters, carefully pinning a gown meant for the Duchess of Altonshire. She's focused, in her element, surrounded by thread, pins, and sketches. The only thing missing is a decent cup of coffee and a Christmas playlist, both of which she's been denied by the strict palace rules. No singing Mariah Carey in royal workspaces, the head steward had warned. Suddenly, the door swings open. Emily looks up, expecting a fellow tailor, or maybe a footman carrying more fabric. Instead, it's him. Prince Edward. Not in ceremonial garb, but in a soft wool sweater and slacks, hair slightly tousled, a touch of winter pink in his cheeks. He looks just as startled as she does. "Oh," he says, pausing mid-step. "You must be Emily." Emily blinks, completely caught off guard, and holding a pin dangerously close to the Duchess's dress. "And you must be late for your royal duties," she replies with a crooked smile, masking her nerves. He laughs. It's not the stiff, rehearsed chuckle you might expect from royalty. It's real, warm and boyish. "I was told you'd be in the ballroom," he says, stepping closer. "But apparently you've taken over the wardrobe department." Emily stands, brushing fabric lint off her jeans. "What can I say? The gowns called to me." There's a brief silence. Not awkward, just charged. He watches her with genuine curiosity, intrigued by her confidence and lack of pretense. She notices how comfortable he seems, even in such an extravagant place. "You really made the trip just to help with some dresses?" he asks. She shrugs. "Well, that, and the promise of snow, pastry towers, and awkward introductions to foreign nobility." His smile widens. "Then allow me to add to the list. Would you consider helping me with a suit fitting? My tailor's off somewhere misplacing buttons again." "Do you trust a Philly seamstress with royal measurements?" she asks, quirking an eyebrow. "I trust you more than anyone else in this palace right now." That does it. The air between them shifts, something unspoken sparking in the quiet. Without another word, she grabs her measuring tape and gestures to a fitting stool. As she works, taking his measurements, adjusting a collar, smoothing a cuff, their conversation flows easily. They talk about Cordinia, about her shop in Philadelphia, his charity work, and their mutual distaste for overly stiff formality. By the time Emily steps back to look at her handiwork, they're both smiling like they've known each other for years. "Perfect fit," she says softly. Prince Edward looks at her, not just the tailor, but the woman in front of him. "I was just thinking the same thing." And just like that, a seamstress and a prince begin to stitch their own little holiday miracle. From the hallway, behind a slightly cracked door, Queen Margaret listens in with narrowed eyes. She doesn't like what she's hearing, because it sounds suspiciously like chemistry. Twinkling lights and tinsel hearts. The days leading up to the Christmas gala pass in a gentle flurry of snow, laughter, and quiet moments that grow more meaningful with each passing hour. Edward and Emily begin finding little excuses to spend time together outside of fitting rooms and fabric consultations. He offers to give her a private tour of the palace, though tour quickly becomes walks in the garden and detours to the royal kitchen for hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. Their connection is effortless. Edward is enchanted by Emily's warmth and authenticity, her ability to make anyone feel seen, even in a palace built to keep people at a distance. Emily is equally drawn to Edward, not for his title, but for his humor, his kindness, and the way he listens when she speaks, like every word matters. One afternoon, Edward finds Emily in the palace's greenhouse, where she's perched on a stool sketching a dress design inspired by frosted holly leaves. "I didn't peg you for a Christmas enthusiast," he teases, leaning against the doorframe. Emily glances up, grinning. "You have 12 Christmas trees in the palace. Don't pretend you're not a holiday nerd." "Fair," he laughs, stepping inside. "But I draw the line at themed socks." Emily reaches down, lifts the hem of her jeans slightly, and reveals peppermint-striped socks. Edward laughs so hard he nearly trips into a poinsettia. Later that evening, he invites her to join him for a carriage ride through the decorated town square. Wrapped in wool blankets and sipping spiced cider, they watch children ice skate and choirs perform under lamplight. Snow falls gently around them, making the entire moment feel like something out of one of Emily's beloved holiday movies. "I never thought I'd find something real like this," Edward says softly, eyes fixed on the stars above. "Not in this world." Emily turns to him, heart fluttering. "You mean, in the royal world?" He nods. "Everyone always sees the crown. No one ever just sees me." She studies him for a moment, then quietly replies, "Well, I see you." He turns, and their eyes meet, just long enough for the rest of the world to fade away. But before anything more can happen, bells ring in the town square, signaling the start of the royal countdown to the gala. Reality, like the distant chime, creeps back in. They smile shyly, but something has changed, deepened. Back at the palace, as Emily hangs her coat and returns to her workspace, she finds a small box waiting for her. Inside, a delicate snowflake pendant and a handwritten note. "For the woman who made this cold palace feel like Christmas." She clutches it to her chest, overcome. And in a quiet corner of the palace, Queen Margaret watches the snow fall and makes a firm resolution. This is getting out of hand. It's time for Operation Breakup. A country Christmas for two. With the Christmas gala only days away, the royal schedule is packed, but Edward finds clever ways to accidentally clear a few blocks of time. And Emily, despite being waist-deep in silk, sequins, and gala fittings, always seems to be available when he stops by with that signature crooked grin. To give her a break from palace chaos, Edward invites Emily to join him for a tour of Cordinia's famous Christmas traditions, ones the public celebrates far from the marble floors and crystal chandeliers of royal life. Their first stop, the Cordinian Christmas market, nestled in the heart of the old town square. Rows of wooden stalls glow with fairy lights and the scent of roasted chestnuts, cinnamon buns, and pine. Children ride carousels while carolers in velvet cloaks sing in perfect harmony. Emily, wide-eyed and glowing beneath her knit beanie, darts from booth to booth, tugging Edward along by the hand like an excited tourist. Handmade ornaments? Yes. Gingerbread shaped like royal guards? Absolutely. Oh, mulled wine in collectible mugs? You're drinking with me, Princey. He laughs, letting her steer the day. For the first time in a long while, he feels like just a guy. Not a figurehead. Not a symbol. Just Edward, standing beside a woman who radiates Christmas spirit and doesn't care what fork goes with what fish course. Later, they try Cordinia's snowberry toss, a local game where townsfolk toss dried berries into a copper pot for good luck. Emily wins on her first try. Edward doesn't, but she offers to grant him one wish anyway, and winks. Then, they visit the wishing tree, an age-old tradition where villagers write down hopes and dreams on tiny scrolls and tie them to evergreen branches. Emily hesitates, then pens something, lips pursed thoughtfully. She ties her scroll high on the tree, just out of Edward's sight. When he teases her to share what she wrote, she only replies, "It's about someone I met who surprised me." Later that night, Edward takes her on a spontaneous detour to a quiet hilltop chapel, where the village choir practices under the stars. They sit on a stone bench, wrapped in a single scarf between them, listening as the singers fill the air with harmony. "I grew up with these traditions," he murmurs. "But they feel different now. Because you're seeing them through fresh eyes?" Emily says. "No," Edward replies softly, gazing at her. "Because I'm seeing them with you." They sit in silence for a beat, the music wrapping around them like a warm blanket. The stars above sparkle like tinsel. Below the hill, a pair of royal guards whisper into radios. Queen Margaret has just received word. The seamstress has been spotted wearing His Highness's scarf. And that can only mean one thing. It's time for reinforcements. The royal realization. Queen Margaret, Jane Seymour, has always believed in upholding tradition, decorum, and the long-standing reputation of the Cordinian monarchy. So when a red-cheeked palace footman bursts into her study one snowy morning, whispering, "Your Majesty," I believe the prince is fraternizing with the seamstress, the queen doesn't even look up from her embroidery. "I'm sure you mean he's being polite." Edward is always gracious to staff. "But, Your Majesty," he gave her his scarf. The needle halts mid-stitch. Her head slowly rises. His scarf? The tartan cashmere one from Harrods? A pause. Then, summon Lady Agatha. Immediately. Within the hour, Queen Margaret is perched in her favorite chair in the Rose Parlor, sipping lemon tea with pursed lips as her most loyal advisor, Lady Agatha Weatherby, a woman with binocular vision sharper than any palace security camera, delivers her report. She's American, from a place called Philadelphia, Agatha says with faint horror, as if she's describing a contagious disease. A seamstress, the Queen repeats, placing her teacup down a bit harder than usual. Very charming, if I may say. The footmen are positively smitten. And the prince, well, he's been seen laughing, smiling, strolling. Strolling? Margaret gasps. Not hand-in-hand strolling? Agatha nods solemnly. In the Christmas market. With cider. From the same cup. The Queen gasps again, clutching her pearls. This is a royal emergency. Margaret paces by the fireplace, her mind racing. She stares at the portrait of Edward's late father, stoic, proud, forever posed in his coronation robes. Your father would have never sipped cider from the same cup as a commoner, she murmurs to the painting. Then she spins around dramatically. This gala must go off flawlessly. Dignitaries, nobles, the press, it's a cornerstone of our royal calendar. If Edward is seen with her on his arm, the headlines will write themselves. Lady Agatha nods solemnly. It's only a matter of time before the tabloids refer to her as the Stitch in the Crown. Margaret gasps. No. I won't have my son's future, or the future of this monarchy, embroidered by a Philadelphia seamstress who probably thinks cutlery etiquette is a designer brand. She takes a deep breath, smoothing her skirt with regal resolve. If this relationship is a holiday fling, we let it run its course. But if it's more, we must intervene. Subtly, of course. Lady Agatha arches a brow. Subtly? Margaret's eyes twinkle with the thrill of royal scheming. It's time for a few seasonal distractions. Operation Royal Recalibration. Queen Margaret sits at her grand writing desk, quill in hand, parchment unfurled, expression grim with determination. Snow falls gently beyond the palace windows, but inside the Queen's mind, a storm is brewing. She dips her pen dramatically into ink and scrawls across the top of the page, "How to Save the Monarchy from a Seamstress, Holiday Edition." Below it, she begins outlining strategies. Introduce Edward to a proper match, Lady Arabella Fairfax, fluent in 5 languages, third in line to the Belgian throne, knows exactly what fork to use for oysters. Expose the seamstress to royal protocol, surprise etiquette test over breakfast. Egg cups and napkin folding included. Invite Emily to a high tea with dowager duchesses. Make sure Lady Mabel brings her 10 dogs. That'll rattle the common girl. Remind Edward of his duties. Daily calendar updates to include phrases like national image, future queen responsibilities, and impressionable young Cordinian minds. Accidental media leak, tabloid headline suggestion, a needle in the throne? Later that evening, as carolers perform in the grand hallway, Margaret pulls Lady Agatha aside. Phase 1 begins tomorrow, she whispers. Agatha, already holding a clipboard, nods. Shall we start with the etiquette ambush? Delightful, Margaret purrs. The next morning, Emily receives a handwritten invitation, gold-trimmed, no less, to a casual breakfast with the Queen. She arrives in a modest blouse and her best winter skirt, only to be led into the formal dining room, where 23 pieces of cutlery gleam in symmetrical formation around her place setting. Queen Margaret, draped in pearls and judgment, greets her with a tight-lipped smile. Do sit, dear. I hope you don't mind soft-boiled eggs. We Cordinian women eat them every Tuesday. Emily, wide-eyed, sits, then reaches for the wrong spoon. Margaret raises an eyebrow. Fascinating choice. Emily chuckles awkwardly. Oh. I was just testing you. It only gets more awkward when a duchess in a hat the size of a wreath appears uninvited and begins rattling off stories about palace scandals involving people with names like Lord Snottlebottom. Later, Margaret arranges for Edward to meet Lady Arabella Fairfax in the Rose Garden, a chance encounter, carefully timed to coincide with Emily walking by the window. But Arabella, much to Margaret's horror, turns out to be delightful. She greets Edward with a curtsy and a joke about Cordinian royal gossip. Edward, ever the gentleman, chats politely, but keeps glancing at the window, clearly looking for someone else. Someone in a cozy knit hat and peppermint socks. Meanwhile, Emily tries her best to fit in, but every attempt ends in mild disaster. She spills tea on a duke's lap, she opens the ballroom doors the wrong way, and she accidentally calls Lady Mabel's prized pug Sir Snuffles, instead of Lord Berkeley IV. Each misstep only fuels Queen Margaret's belief that Emily is a sweet girl, but hopelessly unsuitable. Back in her private quarters, Margaret writes in her journal, charming, sincere, unraveled by finger sandwiches. She cannot be queen. But what the queen doesn't see is how Emily, alone in the linen room later that night, sews a torn hem on a servant's uniform without being asked. Or how she sneaks extra cookies to the kitchen staff. Or how she listens, really listens, to everyone she meets, even the people Margaret overlooks. The queen is plotting. But love, as always, has a plot of its own. The Christmas ball, starlight, strings, and scandalous sparkles. The grand ballroom of the Cordinian palace has never looked more dazzling. Crystal chandeliers drip with icicle-like lights, golden garlands shimmer along the pillars, and a 40-foot Christmas tree, decked with heirloom ornaments and velvet ribbons, towers over the room like a festive giant. Snow falls gently beyond the palace windows, and inside, a string quartet plays a delicate rendition of "O Holy Night." Nobles from across Europe arrive in glittering gowns and sharply pressed tuxedos. Titles are whispered, diamonds are admired, and champagne glasses clink like delicate bells. But the buzz isn't about the Count of Luxembourg's new monocle or even Duchess Claudette's scandalously sparkly shoes. No, it's all about the prince, and the girl from Philadelphia. Enter Emily. On Edward's arm, Emily descends the grand staircase in a stunning midnight blue gown, one she designed and stitched herself. A subtle nod to her roots, the dress has delicate embroidery resembling tiny snowflakes along the hem. Her hair is softly curled, and her eyes sparkle with nervous excitement. A hushed gasp travels through the ballroom like a ripple in still water. Edward, ever confident, beams with pride as he leads her toward the center of the room. "All eyes are on you," he whispers. "Oh, great," Emily murmurs. "Let's hope I don't trip on this royal rug." The guests part as they make their entrance. Queen Margaret watches from her throne-like chair on the dais, fanning herself with regal restraint and the barest hint of disapproval. Lady Agatha leans over. She doesn't curtsy like a noble. "No," Margaret says flatly. She curtsies like she learned it on YouTube. Still, Edward is undeterred. He takes Emily to greet the Duke and Duchess of Elmsworth, who blink twice too many times when Emily tells them she owns a sewing machine. Emily, sweet and sincere, compliments the Duchess's gown. "Is it vintage Dior? I love the sleeve structure." The Duchess is so taken aback, she softens immediately. "Why, yes, it is. How extraordinary you noticed." One noble at a time, Emily charms the room, not with courtly grace, but with genuine kindness, clever observations, and just enough awkwardness to be endearing. She even makes a few of the younger noble ladies laugh by confessing she once sewed her finger to a winter coat. Later, Edward leads her to the dance floor. As they waltz beneath the chandeliers, the orchestra swelling, Edward murmurs, "Still nervous?" "Terrified," Emily says. "But I think I'm starting to get the hang of this whole royal girlfriend thing." "You're perfect," Edward says, pulling her closer. They spin as snow begins to fall from the ceiling, palace magic, of course. Up on the dais, Queen Margaret watches, lips pursed. Her carefully laid plan is unraveling, stitch by stitch. Even Lady Agatha seems charmed. She has spirit, she admits. Spirit is not a royal qualification, Margaret says, though her voice is starting to waver. Then, as the music slows, the crowd parts unexpectedly. A royal photographer has arrived, and the flash of cameras begins. Edward doesn't flinch. In fact, he steps forward and, in front of the entire nobility, gently kisses Emily's hand and introduces her. "This is Emily Taylor. She's the reason I smile like a fool these days." Another gasp. Queen Margaret nearly drops her fan. But the crowd doesn't recoil. Instead, applause breaks out. Soft at first, then stronger. One by one, nobles nod approvingly. Emily, breathless and stunned, turns to Edward. "Did you just go public?" "I'd introduce you to the world if I could," he whispers. "But tonight, this room will do." Up on the dais, Margaret sighs and mutters, "This is not how I imagined Christmas." Then she takes a sip of brandy and adds, "But it's very entertaining." The belle of the ball, and the thorn in the Queen's side. As the evening progresses, Emily continues to surprise the high society crowd of Cordinia. She speaks with ambassadors, gracefully thanks dukes for their compliments, and even dances with an elderly viscount who hadn't smiled in years. Her laughter, warm and genuine, echoes through the marble halls like a familiar Christmas carol. At one point, the palace chef pops in to thank her personally for suggesting a honey glaze for the roast goose. "She knows food too," one duchess whispers to another. By the dessert course, Emily's once questioned presence is now the event's highlight. A young baroness even whispers to her friend, "She's so real. I actually like her." And that's the problem. Because while Emily's popularity soars, Queen Margaret's patience crumbles like a stale sugar cookie. From her seat on the elevated platform, she watches through narrowed eyes, dabbing at her temple with a silk handkerchief as if warding off a royal headache. Lady Agatha leans in. They adore her. Margaret forces a tight smile. So they do. The nobles love a novelty. She's not a novelty, Your Majesty. She's a breath of fresh air. Margaret shoots her a sideways glance. So is a snowstorm. Until it ruins your evening. Meanwhile, Emily has just helped a count's granddaughter fix a broken bracelet with a safety pin from her clutch. "It's not about what you wear," she tells the girl, smiling. "It's how you wear it." The girl beams, and Margaret nearly drops her teacup. Back on the dance floor, Prince Edward beams with pride. "I knew they'd love you." Emily glances up toward the dais. "I'm not sure your mother got that memo." "Give her time," Edward says, hopeful. "She just needs to see what I see." Emily nods slowly but glances once more at Queen Margaret, who is now frowning so hard she could turn fruitcake to stone. Later, Emily sneaks away to the balcony to catch her breath. The cold air nips at her cheeks, and snow flutters down like powdered sugar on a pastry. She smiles, until she hears a voice behind her. "Enjoying the evening, Miss Taylor?" Emily turns to find Queen Margaret standing in the doorway, elegant and cold as a snow-covered statue. "Your Majesty," Emily says with a soft curtsy. "It's beautiful." Margaret steps forward slowly, her tone pleasant, but sharp. "I must admit, I underestimated you. You're poised, clever, unexpectedly resourceful, like a very charming snow globe." Emily smiles politely. "Thank you. I think. But even snow globes, Miss Taylor," the Queen adds, "are meant for mantles, not thrones." Emily's smile falters. "I do hope you're not confusing the warmth of the evening with a place at this table," Margaret continues. "Tonight was a spectacle. But Cordinia is not just Christmas lights and pastries. It's tradition, legacy, diplomacy. Do you understand?" "I understand that I care deeply about your son," Emily says, steady. "And I didn't ask for any of this. I just followed my heart." Margaret studies her. "Yes, that's exactly what concerns me." She turns and leaves, her heels echoing against the marble floor. Emily stays on the balcony, snow landing softly in her hair, her heart sinking just a little. Inside, the ballroom sparkles. Laughter bubbles. But out here, the winter feels a bit colder. Unbeknownst to her, Edward watches from a distance, concern growing in his eyes. The Queen's Gambit. The Christmas ball may have ended with grace and glitter, but Queen Margaret has not been charmed. Not truly. While nobles hum carols and gossip about the delightful American girl, the Queen retreats to her study with Lady Agatha for a more serious debrief. She's gaining traction, Agatha says, sipping sherry. Margaret narrows her eyes. She's gaining sympathy, which is far more dangerous. And so begins her campaign of quiet correction. Over the next few days, Margaret unleashes her most powerful weapon, subtlety. Royal scheduling, conflicts. Suddenly, Edward's schedule is full, very full. Morning meetings with dignitaries. Afternoon hunting expeditions with visiting nobles. Evening charity galas hosted by ladies with perfect pedigrees and suspiciously sparkly eyes. Emily shows up at the palace garden with hot cocoa for Edward, only to be told he's been called to an urgent meeting with the Minister of Protocol. Again. The accidental introduction of Lady Clarissa. During a glittering winter luncheon at the palace, Queen Margaret makes her move. "Edward, dear," she says sweetly, waving him over, "you remember Lady Clarissa Pembroke, don't you?" Clarissa steps forward in a figure-hugging cranberry velvet gown and a smile as sharp as an icicle. Clarissa has just returned from Paris, where she's been studying international etiquette. And embroidery, the Queen adds with a tight smile, glancing at Emily. Clarissa offers Edward a cheek kiss and turns to Emily. "Oh, you sew too? How darling." Emily smiles, holding her tongue. "Yes. I do. Mostly gowns and dreams." Margaret lifts an eyebrow. How poetic. Lady Clarissa spends the entire luncheon reminiscing about her time at boarding school with other royals, all while Emily quietly rearranges the bread rolls into the shape of a tiny snowman. Discredit by diplomacy. Later, during a small royal meeting about holiday festivities, Margaret deliberately mispronounces Emily's last name while introducing her to the council. "This is Miss Taylor-son, I believe." She's assisting with the napkin decor. "Taylor," Emily corrects gently. "And I actually designed the entire ballroom concept." Margaret raises a brow. "Did you? My, how ambitious." Emily's hands tighten around her notebook, but she smiles anyway. "I like a challenge." "Apparently," Margaret says coolly. Peppermint pity. The Queen even ensures that a misplaced tabloid article about Emily's humble beginnings makes its way into the royal press, complete with an old photo of Emily in high school dressed as a Christmas elf at the mall. The headline, "Philadelphia Peasant to Princess?" Edward is furious. Emily just sighs. "I actually liked that elf costume." Despite the underhanded tactics, Edward keeps seeking Emily out. He brings her pastries when she's stressed, they sneak snowball fights behind the palace greenhouse, and he tells her every day that he's not interested in titles, only her. But Emily starts to feel the pressure. The stares. The whispers. The gap between her world and his. She tries to hide it, but Queen Margaret sees the crack, and she intends to pry it open. And yet, even the Queen can't deny that something about Emily lingers. Lingers in the laughter of the staff. In the glow Edward wears when she's near. In the way the palace feels, just a little more alive. The queen adjusts her crown one morning and mutters to her reflection, "I suppose even mistletoe can grow in unlikely places." But she's not giving up. Not yet. Mistletoe doubts. The palace is dressed in sparkling garlands, velvet ribbons, and the glow of thousands of fairy lights. But for Emily, everything suddenly feels colder. In the quiet of her guest room, grand, yes, but sterile, she sits by the frosted window in her oversized holiday sweater, sipping lukewarm tea. The sounds of distant carolers echo through the courtyard below, but the magic is fading. She scrolls through a dozen missed texts from her sister back home in Philly. "Have you met the queen yet? OMG, you were on the news here. Wait, are you at a palace right now?" But Emily doesn't respond. A different world. Earlier that day, she had tripped, literally, on a polished marble step during a tour with Lady Clarissa, who immediately turned it into a charming anecdote for the noble crowd. And here we have the grand staircase, Clarissa laughed, helping Emily up. It's a bit less forgiving than American sidewalks, isn't it? The nobles chuckled politely. Emily laughed too, but inside, something twisted. Later, she overheard two noblewomen whispering behind an embroidered curtain, "She's sweet, but let's be honest, she's hardly Duchess material." Well, unless the title comes with an apron. Emily left the room quietly before they noticed her. The talk with Edward. That evening, Edward finds her in the palace library, curled up in a velvet armchair, trying to read but only managing to stare at the same page. He kneels beside her. "Are you okay?" She tries to smile. "Just tired." But he knows her too well. "Emily, what's going on?" She hesitates. Then, softly, "I don't belong here, Edward." He frowns. "What are you talking about?" "This place. This world. Your mother, the court, even the forks at dinner come with instructions," she says, forcing a laugh. "I'm just a girl who knows how to sew a clean hem and find the best Philly cheesesteak in town. And I'm a guy who'd rather eat that cheesesteak with you than host another royal brunch with Lady Clarissa and her 15 spoons." She meets his eyes. "It's not that simple. Your life is planned out. Mine's patched together. You were born for this. I was born in a 2-bedroom walk-up with a leaky faucet." He squeezes her hand. "You were born to be you. And that's the person I fell for." But her eyes drift away. And what if that's not enough? He doesn't answer, because for the first time, he's not sure how to convince her otherwise. Alone in the snow. Later that night, Emily slips outside for air. Snowflakes fall gently as she wanders the garden paths. She finds the same balcony from the night of the ball and leans against the stone railing, lost in thought. She thinks of her little workshop in Philly. Her dog. The laughter of her niece as they baked lopsided gingerbread cookies. The warmth of home, simple, messy, real. Is this what love feels like? Or is she just a temporary guest in a glittering fairy tale that's not hers to keep? From a distance, Queen Margaret watches from her window. She sees Emily standing there, quiet, unsure, heart on her sleeve. And for the first time, a flicker of doubt crosses her face too. Misunderstood hearts. The days leading up to Christmas are filled with music and merriment, but to Edward, everything feels slightly off. He walks through the palace corridor holding a sprig of mistletoe, smiling to himself, planning to surprise Emily with a sweet moment near the grand staircase. But when he finds her in the solarium, she's distant, folding ribbons for a table centerpiece, her movements methodical, mechanical. "Hey," he says softly, kneeling beside her. "I brought you something." He holds up the mistletoe with a grin. She glances up, offers a small smile. "That's sweet. Just sweet." Edward's grin fades. "You okay?" She hesitates. "Yeah, just finishing decorations." He tries again. "I thought we could sneak out to the Christmas market. There's a booth selling mulled cider and cinnamon roasted almonds, your favorite. I should probably stay here." "The Queen asked me to help prep the ballroom," Emily replies, avoiding his gaze. Pulling away. Over the next few days, the pattern continues. Edward waits for her at their usual spot in the rose garden. She doesn't show. He leaves a gingerbread heart outside her room with a note, "For the sweetest seamstress in the kingdom." She thanks him with a polite smile, not her usual flustered giggle. It's subtle, but Edward feels it. The shift. The hesitation. Like she's slipping through his fingers, even as he tries harder to hold on. He confides in his trusted valet, Henry, while pacing the royal stables. "She's different," Edward says. "Like she's here, but already saying goodbye." Henry gives him a long look. "Have you asked her what's bothering her?" "I've tried. She won't say. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she doesn't want this life. Or me. Or maybe," Henry says quietly, "she just needs to know you're willing to fight for her." But Edward's heart is clouded with doubt. What if she's already made up her mind? Wrong signals. Meanwhile, Emily stands outside the ballroom, hands trembling slightly as she pins fresh holly into a garland. She sees Edward inside, laughing stiffly with Lady Clarissa, who's resting a hand a little too comfortably on his arm. Emily's heart sinks. Maybe the Queen was right. Maybe he needs someone who fits in, not someone who fumbles the titles and forgets to curtsy. She turns before Edward sees her. Inside the ballroom, Edward catches a glimpse of her retreating figure, but doesn't follow. They're both thinking the same thing. Maybe they're better off apart. Maybe it was just a holiday fantasy after all. But Christmas in Cordinia still has one more miracle up its sleeve. A quiet goodbye. It's late. Snow falls gently on the cobblestone courtyard outside the palace. Inside, the warm glow of golden chandeliers illuminates every corridor, except the small, quiet sitting room where Emily packs her things in silence. A soft rustle of silk. A folded sketch of the ball gown she designed. A photo she took of Edward laughing beside a snowman they built in the garden. She pauses, fingers trembling as she places it gently into her bag. The Queen's final push. Earlier that evening, Queen Margaret summoned Emily to her private parlor. A room full of polished antiques and quiet judgment. "I must confess," the Queen began, voice like fine china, "you've exceeded my expectations. You are quite talented and charming in your own way." Emily sat perfectly still, hands folded, heart thudding. "But," the Queen continued, "the crown is not a fairy tale. It demands sacrifice, composure, nobility. And I fear, my dear, that you and Edward are on very different paths." Emily's throat tightened. "I never wanted anything from him. Just him." "That may be true," the Queen said coolly, "but the world will never see it that way. And I won't have Edward subjected to whispers and scandal, not during Christmastide, not ever." She rose, clasping her hands. If you truly care for him, Miss Taylor, you will do what's best." Emily didn't respond. She simply stood, nodded politely, and left. But her heart cracked. Her choice. Now, hours later, Emily places one final note on Edward's pillow. "Edward, I never imagined falling in love in a palace. Or with a prince. But I did. And I'll always treasure every moment. I just hope one day, you'll understand why I had to go. You deserve peace, not gossip. A queen, not a seamstress. I love you. I always will." Emily. She brushes away a tear, pulls on her coat, and quietly slips out through the servants' entrance, past the glowing Christmas tree she helped decorate. Outside, her cab waits. The driver nods kindly. Emily climbs in without a word, clutching her sketchbook like a lifeline. As the palace disappears behind her, she whispers to herself, "Merry Christmas, Edward." Inside the palace, Prince Edward enters his room moments later, only to find the note on his pillow, and realize the woman he loves is gone. The crown and the heart. The echo of hurried footsteps reverberates through the grand halls of the palace. Prince Edward storms past startled attendants and footmen, his eyes blazing with a mix of heartbreak and fury. In his hand, Emily's farewell note, crumpled, trembling from the grip of someone who's just lost the love of his life. He throws open the doors to the Queen's private sitting room, where Queen Margaret sits near the fireplace, sipping her evening tea as if the world outside hasn't changed. She doesn't look up. "Edward. It's late. Shouldn't you be? Did you speak to her?" he demands, voice sharp, pained. Queen Margaret sets her teacup down with an audible clink. "If you mean Miss Taylor, I merely offered a conversation." A moment of clarity. Clarity? Edward's voice rises. "You told her to leave me." "I reminded her of her place," Margaret replies coolly. "And yours." Edward steps forward, dropping the note on the table between them. "She left because of this. Because she thought she was protecting me from you." The Queen's composure falters, just slightly. "She was happy, Mother. I was happy. We were building something real. And you destroyed it with your cold, calculated opinions of what love should look like. She doesn't belong in this world, Edward," Margaret says firmly. "The press would tear her apart. The court would never accept her." "I don't care about the court. Or the press. I care about her." He softens slightly, heart still raw. "You always said the crown should be worn by someone with strength, character, grace. That's Emily. She has more dignity in one moment than half this palace does in a lifetime." Queen Margaret looks away, jaw tight. "She was going to ruin your future." "No. She was my future." A heavy silence settles between them, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock and the distant ringing of holiday bells from the village below. Finally, the Queen sighs. "You've always had your father's stubbornness," she says quietly. "And his heart." Edward stares at her, breathless. "Then you know I have to go after her." The Queen nods, barely. "Yes. I suppose you do." Edward turns without another word, rushing out of the room as snow begins to fall harder outside. Queen Margaret remains seated, alone in the glow of the fire, the mistletoe hanging quietly above her door. And for the first time, she wonders if maybe she got it wrong. The departure. The morning sun rises gently over the snow-covered hills of Cordinia, casting a golden hue across the sleepy town. The twinkling lights from the Christmas decorations still shine in shop windows, but for Emily, the magic has dulled. She stands in her small guest suite at the inn on the edge of the village, suitcase open on the bed. Folded neatly beside it are sketches of gowns, bolts of fabric she never got to use, and the elegant dress she wore to the royal Christmas ball, the night that felt like a dream, before it all slipped away. She pulls out her phone and checks her flight. Philadelphia, 3:25 p.m. A soft knock on the door interrupts her thoughts. It's Clara, the palace's kind housekeeper and Emily's unlikely confidant. Clara enters with a warm scarf in hand. Thought you might need this. It gets colder the farther you go from here. Emily offers a weak smile. Thanks, Clara. Clara looks around the room, her gaze landing on the packed suitcase. You're really leaving, then? Emily nods. It's for the best. I don't belong here. I'm not a duchess. I'm not royal. I'm just me. Clara tilts her head gently. Funny. Because the prince didn't seem to fall for a duchess. He fell for you. Emily swallows hard and turns away, blinking back tears. The queen made it clear. She wants someone who fits the mold. Someone polished, with titles and pedigree. I'm just a girl from Philadelphia who designs dresses in her tiny apartment and drinks peppermint lattes from a paper cup. She laughs quietly, bitterly. I'm not what he needs. Clara walks over, placing the scarf in Emily's hand. But maybe, she says softly, you're exactly what he wants. Emily doesn't respond. She finishes packing, zips the suitcase closed, and gazes out the frosty window one last time. Below, children are building snowmen in the village square. Bells chime from the chapel tower. The Christmas spirit is still alive in Cordinia. But for Emily, it's time to go. She lifts her bag and quietly walks down the stairs, heart heavy and mind racing. As she steps into the cold winter air, she doesn't realize that someone, far away, back at the palace, is racing to find her. And Christmas isn't over yet. A Christmas chase. Fresh snow blankets the village roads as Edward rides through town on horseback, his royal guards far behind, his coat flapping in the wind, his breath visible in the freezing air. Time is slipping away, and so is the woman he loves. He rides past shops decked with garlands, past townsfolk who gasp at the sight of their prince galloping like something out of a fairy tale. He doesn't care. Not today. In his hand, Emily's note. Folded, worn, and read too many times to count. Then, he sees it. The Cordinia Express, a horse-drawn coach loading luggage at the inn. A porter shouts, Philadelphia, final call. Emily stands there, arms wrapped around herself in the chilly air. She's dressed simply, her suitcase beside her, and her expression a mixture of sorrow and quiet resolve. She's trying to be strong. Then she hears it. Emily. She turns. Edward dismounts and runs to her, slipping slightly on the ice but not stopping for a second. Edward, what are you? I was a fool, he says, breathing hard. A coward. I should have stood up to my mother the moment she looked at you like you were anything less than magnificent. She blinks, startled. She saw a seamstress. I saw the woman who reminded me how to laugh, how to hope, how to love Christmas again. Emily, you walked into my life with pins in your pocket and dreams in your eyes, and I've been lost ever since. Her lips tremble. But I don't belong in your world. I don't want the world without you in it. A hush falls between them. Snowflakes swirl around like tiny stars. "I'm sorry I didn't fight sooner," he says, softer now. "But I'm here. And I'm fighting now. If that means giving up the crown, I'll do it. If that means waiting until you're ready, I'll wait. Just, please don't go." Emily searches his eyes. "You're not giving up the crown," she says, her voice catching. "You're going to rule Cordinia. And you're going to do it with heart. Just like you're doing right now. Only if you'll stand beside me," Edward whispers. "As my partner. As my equal. As the woman I love." She stares at him for a moment. Then slowly, a smile tugs at her lips. Emily throws her arms around his neck, and he lifts her off the snowy ground, spinning her as the entire village erupts into cheers. Bells ring in the distance, and behind them, Queen Margaret watches from a palace window, her expression unreadable. But even she can't deny it now. This is love. Truth beneath the mistletoe. Later that evening, after the rush of emotion at the coach stop, Edward takes Emily to the royal gardens, now glistening under the soft glow of lanterns and wrapped in twinkling lights. Snow falls gently as they walk in silence, the air still charged with everything left unsaid. They stop beneath a stone arch adorned with holly, ivy, and mistletoe. Edward turns to her, his eyes full of hope. "You said you loved Christmas. I figured this would be the perfect place to talk." Emily smiles faintly, then looks away. "It's beautiful. Everything about this place is beautiful. But something's still holding you back," he says gently. She nods. "I meant what I said earlier," Emily begins, her voice trembling slightly. "I love you, Edward. I think. I knew it from the moment you helped me fix that ripped sleeve in the ballroom. You didn't care about titles or status. You just cared about me." Edward listens intently, letting her speak her truth. "But," she takes a breath, "I'm scared. This, us, feels like a fairy tale. But fairy tales don't always last. What happens when the holiday ends? When I'm no longer the novelty from Philadelphia? When palace duties, royal protocols, and constant judgment become our everyday life?" Edward takes a step closer, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "Then we face it. Together." Emily looks at him, her eyes glistening. "What if I'm not strong enough?" "You are," he says without hesitation. "You are brave, Emily Taylor. You came to a foreign country, dazzled a kingdom, survived my mother's withering stares, and somehow still found a way to be true to yourself. That strength, that heart, that's what I need beside me. Not a duchess. You." She lets out a shaky laugh. "You always say the right thing." "No," he smiles. "Only when it's true." He takes her hands. "We don't need to know everything about the future right now. But I do know this, I love you. And I'll spend every day proving you're not just part of my Christmas, you're part of my forever." Emily hesitates for a beat, then slowly nods, the last of her fears melting away with the snow around them. "I love you too," she whispers. "And maybe this fairy tale has more chapters than I thought." They share a tender kiss under the mistletoe as carolers begin to sing in the distance, their silhouettes framed in golden light and snowfall. A Christmas Eve declaration. The royal palace is alive with festive cheer, its grand halls filled with sparkling decorations, the scent of cinnamon and pine in the air. Guests from every corner of Cordinia and beyond have gathered for the annual Christmas Eve gala. Music fills the air, the grand chandeliers glisten, and laughter and merriment echo through the marble corridors. In the royal ballroom, Edward stands at the center, surrounded by nobles, dignitaries, and familiar faces, including his mother, Queen Margaret, who watches him closely, her expression unreadable. The clock ticks closer to midnight, signaling the momentous occasion, the Crown Prince's address to the kingdom. Edward's heart pounds in his chest as he waits for the right moment. He glances over to the edge of the ballroom, where Emily stands, stunning in a simple but elegant gown that makes her glow like the very spirit of Christmas. Her eyes are filled with both anticipation and doubt, as if she's not sure she belongs here among the royal elite. As the crowd grows hushed, Edward steps forward, his eyes never leaving Emily's. He lifts his glass, a signal to begin, but instead of speaking of royal duties, of upcoming events or speeches, he opens his heart to all those gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and my dear mother," he begins, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Tonight, we gather to celebrate the greatest gift of all, the spirit of love, joy, and family." He pauses, letting his words sink in, before continuing. "But for me, this Christmas has brought something even greater, something I didn't expect and never could have planned." The crowd grows quiet, curious. Edward turns toward Emily, his gaze softening. "This Christmas, I found someone who makes my heart full in a way I never thought possible. Someone who reminded me that love isn't about titles or wealth or status. It's about kindness, bravery, and authenticity." Emily's eyes widen, her breath catching as she realizes what's happening. "Emily Taylor," Edward says, stepping toward her, his voice ringing out clearly for all to hear, "I have fallen in love with you, not because you are from a distant land, not because you are a noble woman or a seamstress, but because you are simply you. And no matter the obstacles before us, I want to spend every day of my life proving that." Gasps ripple through the crowd. Queen Margaret's gaze sharpens, her fingers tightening around her glass, but Edward continues, undeterred. "I know there are many who doubt our love. They say a prince cannot marry a commoner. They say we come from different worlds. But the truth is, Emily has shown me that love is what bridges all divides. She has taught me that the heart knows no boundaries, and if it's my heart I'm following, then it leads straight to her." The room is still for a long moment, and then, from all corners, murmurs of approval and admiration rise. Edward reaches for Emily's hand, gently pulling her into the center of the room. He holds her close, lifting his eyes to the crowd. "I'm not asking for permission," he declares, his voice strong with resolve. "I'm asking for understanding. Because no matter where we come from, or what we face, Emily and I will build our future together, one that is founded on love, truth, and a shared belief in what matters most." Emily, now on the verge of tears, stands with him, heart in her throat. She squeezes his hand, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "I love you too, Edward. And I want to be with you. No matter what the world says." The crowd bursts into applause, the sound of clinking glasses and joyful cheers ringing out across the ballroom. The Queen watches from her seat, her face a mask of contemplation. Her eyes soften as she witnesses the deep connection between her son and Emily, something more powerful than titles, more important than lineage. The clock strikes midnight. Edward turns to Emily, takes her face in his hands, and kisses her deeply, sealing the promise of their future in front of the entire kingdom. The Queen's blessing. The applause dies down as Edward and Emily share their kiss, the air thick with the hum of excitement. The crowd is in full celebration, but amidst the revelry, Queen Margaret watches quietly from her elevated position at the head of the ballroom. Her expression remains carefully composed, yet there's something in her gaze, something subtle, that betrays her thoughts. Edward, still holding Emily close, casts a glance toward his mother. His heart races, knowing the road ahead won't be easy, but he also knows that tonight was a necessary step. The kingdom's approval is one thing, but he needs his mother's blessing to move forward. Emily, noticing the Queen's intense gaze, steps back a bit, unsure. She had hoped for acceptance, but the weight of her position as a foreigner in the palace still feels heavy on her shoulders. Queen Margaret stands slowly, her regal posture unyielding, and for a moment, the entire room holds its breath. Her eyes lock with Edward's, no longer sharp or judgmental, but filled with an understanding that only a mother can have. She approaches them, her footsteps measured and deliberate. "Edward," she begins, her voice quiet but commanding. The room goes silent in anticipation. "You've always been headstrong. But this," she glances at Emily, then back at her son. "This is something far greater than I ever imagined." Edward's heart skips a beat, but he holds his ground. "I know I've been difficult, Emily," Queen Margaret continues, her eyes softening as she looks at the young woman standing before her. "I've always feared what might happen if you were not ready for the life that this title demands. And I feared how the people of Cordinia would react." Emily lowers her gaze, uncertain of how to respond, but Queen Margaret reaches out to gently lift her chin, her touch surprisingly tender. "But in watching you tonight, I've come to see that you have something that not all royalty does. You have heart. And it's clear to me now that that is all that matters." The room is still, hanging on every word. "You've brought joy to my son in a way I haven't seen in years," the Queen continues, her voice filled with warmth. "And I can see that he would be lost without you." "So," she glances around the room, where murmurs of approval rise from the guests. "If my son is happy, then so am I. And if you, Emily Taylor, are the woman who makes him whole, then I welcome you into this family." Emily's eyes widen, a tear slipping down her cheek. She hadn't expected this, not after all the tension and doubt she'd felt since arriving in Cordinia. Queen Margaret turns to the crowd, her voice clear and authoritative. "This is not just a declaration of love. This is a declaration of our future. Prince Edward and Emily Taylor will be wed, and their union will strengthen Cordinia for years to come." The guests burst into applause, and this time, it's not just polite clapping, it's heartfelt, genuine support. Edward steps forward, taking Emily's hand once more. "Thank you, Mother. I can't tell you what this means to us." Queen Margaret smiles softly, the hardness in her eyes gone. "Love," she says, turning to Emily, "can change even the most stubborn of hearts. You've shown me what truly matters. Welcome to the family, my dear." Emily, overcome with emotion, curtsies deeply, her voice trembling as she speaks. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I'll do my best to be worthy of your kindness." The Queen nods, her eyes gleaming with pride and understanding. "I have no doubt, my dear. No doubt at all." With a sense of peace filling the air, Edward pulls Emily close, and they share another kiss, this one tender, full of promise, and backed by the love of the people around them. The room erupts in joy as the future of the royal family is sealed with not just a union of two hearts, but the unification of a kingdom. The music swells, the lights twinkle even brighter, and for the first time in years, Edward feels that everything he ever wanted is finally within reach. It's Christmas Eve, a night for new beginnings, and for the first time, it feels like the whole kingdom is in celebration. A Christmas dance beneath the stars. As the night wears on, the grand festivities continue inside the royal ballroom. But for Edward and Emily, the true magic of Christmas lies outside, under the vast, starlit sky. The moment the formalities of the celebration come to an end, Edward takes Emily's hand, a smile playing on his lips. "Would you like to get some air?" he asks softly, his voice carrying a sense of intimacy that the bustle of the ballroom can't offer. Emily nods, her heart fluttering with excitement and anticipation. "I'd love that." Together, they slip away from the crowd, the distant sound of laughter and music fading as they step into the serene royal gardens. The cold winter air wraps around them like a blanket, but it's not harsh. It feels fresh and invigorating, a perfect complement to the warmth that seems to radiate between them. The garden is alive with Christmas lights, twinkling like stars, and the soft glow of lanterns casts a gentle light over the snow-covered grounds. A delicate dusting of snowflakes falls from the sky, each one sparkling like a tiny jewel. The night is quiet, save for the sound of their footsteps crunching through the snow. Edward leads Emily to the center of the garden, where a beautifully adorned gazebo stands, its roof covered in ivy and shimmering lights. The air is filled with the faint scent of pine and cinnamon, and the soft glow from the lights creates a fairy tale atmosphere. Without a word, Edward takes Emily in his arms, pulling her gently into a dance. The orchestra continues to play a soft, romantic waltz inside the palace, and the music drifts out to the garden, blending seamlessly with the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Emily's heart swells as she rests her head on Edward's shoulder, her body moving with his in perfect harmony. The rhythm of their steps seems to match the beat of her heart, steady, true, and full of love. "Is this real?" she whispers, the wonder of the moment taking over her thoughts. "Is this really happening?" Edward smiles, his voice warm and full of emotion. "It is real, Emily. Every step, every moment with you is real." They spin gracefully under the stars, their laughter filling the crisp air as they glide across the snow-dusted ground. Snowflakes fall in slow motion around them, sparkling as they land on their hair, their faces, their clothes. "I used to dream about moments like this," Emily confesses softly. "About a life where love wasn't something to chase, but something I could hold on to." Edward looks down at her, his eyes full of love and devotion. "And now, you have it," he says, his voice steady. "You have me. We have each other." As they continue to dance, time seems to slow down. The world around them fades, leaving only the two of them, wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by the magic of Christmas. The night sky stretches endlessly above them, as if the stars themselves are watching over their love. Edward twirls Emily beneath the glowing lights of the gazebo, and she laughs, her eyes sparkling with happiness. When he pulls her close again, they stand there for a moment, their foreheads resting against each other, the warmth of their shared embrace the only thing that matters in that moment. "Are you ready for this?" Edward asks softly. "For all that comes next?" Emily smiles, her heart full. "I'm ready. With you, I'm ready for everything." They share a tender kiss, their lips meeting under the mistletoe hanging above them, as snowflakes dance around them. The world feels still, as if this moment could last forever. As the music swells in the background, the two of them continue to dance, lost in the joy of the holiday season and the love they've found in each other. The soft snowfall adds a touch of magic to the night, and the palace, glowing in the distance, stands as a symbol of their new beginning, together, side by side, ready to face whatever challenges may come their way. A promise for forever. The dance slows to a gentle halt, and for a moment, everything around Edward and Emily seems to fade. The music, the twinkling lights, the snowfall, all of it becomes background to the two of them, standing together in a world of their own. Edward holds Emily close, his heart pounding in his chest, but his eyes are steady, filled with a love he never thought possible. He pulls back slightly, just enough to gaze into her eyes. Emily looks up at him, her breath catching in her throat as she senses something more, something significant in the way he's looking at her. "Emily," he begins, his voice soft yet filled with emotion. "This Christmas has changed my life in ways I never imagined. You've brought more joy into my heart than I ever thought possible." Emily smiles, her heart swelling with affection for the man who has become so much more than just a prince. He's her partner, her best friend, the one who has shown her what true love can be. Edward gently takes both of her hands in his thumbs brushing over her skin in a slow, tender motion. "When we first met, I didn't know what to expect. But now, I can't imagine my life without you in it. Your kindness, your strength, your love, everything you are, you make me want to be a better man." He pauses, his gaze shifting briefly to the stars above them. The snow falls more heavily now, blanketing the world around them in a soft, magical silence. He takes a deep breath, gathering his courage, and then looks back at Emily, his eyes burning with sincerity. "Emily Taylor," he continues, his voice thick with emotion. "Will you marry me? Will you be my partner, my love, my equal for all the days of our lives? I promise to support you, to help you chase your dreams, to always stand by your side through whatever comes our way. Together, we'll create a life filled with love, laughter, and magic, just like this Christmas." Emily's breath catches, her heart overwhelmed by the tenderness in his words. Her eyes fill with tears as she stands there, completely overwhelmed by the depth of his love and the promise he's making. She had come to Cordinia thinking she would never belong to this world, but in this moment, she realizes she's already a part of something far greater, a future with Edward, a future filled with love, hope, and endless possibilities. Edward reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a small velvet box. As he opens it, Emily gasps. Inside is a beautiful ring, delicate yet elegant, with a snowflake-shaped diamond at its center, sparkling under the light of the stars. "I want you to have this," Edward says softly. "Because you are my heart, Emily. My home. Will you make me the happiest man in Cordinia and be my wife?" Tears fall freely from Emily's eyes now as she gazes at the ring, then back up at Edward. Her heart is full, her doubts and fears about their future all but forgotten in the face of this moment. "Yes," she whispers, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Edward. I will marry you." The crowd that had been gathered inside the palace might not be there to witness this intimate exchange, but in this quiet, magical moment, it feels as though the entire world is watching. The heavens themselves seem to smile down on them, and the soft snowflakes swirl around them, as if to bless their union. Edward slides the ring onto her finger, and as he does, he pulls her close once again. He kisses her gently, lovingly, promising, not just in words, but with every part of his being, that he will always be there for her. "Thank you," Emily whispers against his lips. "For believing in us. For showing me that love doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be real." The stars twinkle overhead, and for the first time, Emily realizes that this love they've built is everything she ever hoped for. A life full of magic, yes, but more importantly, a life filled with understanding, companionship, and a love that only grows stronger with every passing moment. The snow continues to fall, the night growing colder, but they are warm in each other's arms, surrounded by the promise of their future together. Edward holds Emily close as they step back, continuing to dance, their hearts now fully united in the joy and wonder of Christmas.
The Stories book is a captivating collection of tales that traverse diverse genres and emotions, spanning the realms of fantasy, science fiction, romance, and mystery. Each narrative is a journey into the unexpected, weaving intricate plots and compelling characters. With a skillful blend of vivid imagery and thought-provoking themes, this anthology invites readers to explore the depths of imagination and discover the universal threads that connect us all. From heartwarming moments to spine. We hope you enjoyed these captivating video stories. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content like this. Thanks for watching and keep spreading the video story.